The rent is too damn high. You guys remember Jimmy McMillan, who was running for governor? He, of course, ran in the rent is too damn high party, which is actually pretty hilarious, but I think he's got a really, really good point. Now, according to a new report from the Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard University, most people who rent, around half, can't afford to pay that rent. They don't have enough money to pay their rent. Their rent is literally too damn high. Now, there's some interesting facts on this to back this up, and let me just show you right here. Now, according to this study, the share of renters who pay more than 30% of what they make on housing actually increased by 12% in the last 10 years. Now, that reached 50% of renters in 2010. Half of renters pay more than 30% of their income on just having a place to live. Of that 50%, 27% of those face a severe burden, meaning that they pay more than half of their income on rent. Now, 30%, of course, is considered cost burden. That means you pay around 30% of your income on having a place to live. Now, when you spend 30% of your income on just paying the rent, that reduces your ability to pay on other things. Especially with rising energy costs, rising transportation costs. Gas costs more than it did before. And so, not to mention, you have food that costs more than it did before. And you have all these other factors that have eroded Americans' purchasing power. And you wonder why the recovery has been so tepid. It has not been a good recovery. Now, there are, of course, some more facts here. More than 80% of those who made less than $15,000 in 2011 paid 30% of their income or more on housing, with 71% paying at least half. Now, this shows that the poor are the most affected by this. Those who make $15,000 a year. That's, of course, if you're working 40 hours a week on $7.25 an hour, the federal minimum wage. $15,000. So those are the people that are working at Walmart. Those are the people that are working at McDonald's and Burger King. Working these low-wage fast food jobs or service jobs. Those are the people that can't afford their rent because they're getting paid so little. Now, this would make two cases. You could make two cases out of this and two arguments out of this. One, you could raise the minimum wage, which a lot of people are actually trying to do, and I think that it's a good idea. The other is try to lower the rent. Either or, I think, would be a good, or both, would be actually a good driver of economic growth. That would help people who make so little money per week or per month or per year to be able to afford more things. You see, we run in an economy that is based on consumer spending. When people don't have enough money, they can't go out and spend things, and you can't grow the economy from that. And so when the rent is too high, it really makes it so that you can't afford other things. I mean, you can't go out and start a business. You can't get a new car. You can't get a new anything. You can't get an education when you can't afford when you can hardly afford your rent. And not only that, but you actually have people that can't afford as much food as people in other households. Now get this. Now these renters actually spend about $130 less on food than other households. You know what that means? They have to make that up by getting government assistance. The SNAP program. Now, the SNAP program has also faced recent cuts as well, which is hurting these people even more. Not only that, but like you said, they spend less on food, and they also spend less on health care and retirement. So when you have less money for rent, you can't afford health care. And that means, of course, more government services. People that are that poor have to get on Medicaid as well, and they rely more on Social Security. So when you can't save a retirement, all you get is Social Security. So, I mean, this is a major, major issue facing people with lower incomes. Not only that, but according to the study, a lot of these low-income renters, the people that make less than $15,000 a year, and remember, like I said, that's minimum wage full-time. Most minimum wage people don't even get full-time, so they're living on less than $15,000 a year. Now, in order to be able to afford the rent without any sort of assistance, they would need to have a place that costs about $375 a month to be able to afford that. Now, the median cost for housing that was built, at least within the last 4 years, is more than $1,000 a month. That's the median. Now, of course, you're taking in more expensive places like New York and California, LA, where the rent is incredibly significant. But still, the median average is $1,000 a month. That's $12,000 a year out of $15,000 a year. That's incredible. That is incredibly unaffordable. Now, less than a third of these units rent for under $800, and a staggeringly low 5% of these units go for less than $400 a month. 5%. And you look at all the renters in America, and you realize that most of these people, a lot of people would love to get into that mere 5% that costs less than $400. But obviously there's more demand than there is supply. And, of course, you would think that unemployed people are more likely to get to be those people that can't afford the rent. But that's not entirely true. The report notes that high unemployment rates are not the main culprit, because the spread of burdens has been even greater among households with full-time workers. In fact, it says 3/4 of renters whose household heads couldn't find a job in the previous year had a housing cost burden. But the share of those who were burdened while also working throughout the year rose nearly 10% from the last decade, 2001 to 2011, reaching more than 2.5 million people. And you know what else has made it worse? Sequestration. Now, sequestration had actually cut housing assistance for a lot of people. Now, some people who had actually received housing vouchers to help them pay the rent got it taken back because of sequestration, because of all these budget cuts in the government. 40,000 and 65,000 fewer people had gotten assistance this year compared to last year. So that's all these people who now cannot get assistance paying their rent because of budget cuts in Washington. The automatic budget cuts because of our political gridlock, because of our stupid-ass partisanship. If the cuts continue to stay in place, 125 to 185,000 additional people will lose housing support. And you know, housing support is incredibly effective at keeping people out of poverty and keeping people in their homes. Housing subsidies kept 2.8 million people out of poverty last year, according to this report. Another effect of this, of the rent being too high, is of course homelessness. When you can't afford the rent and you get sick or something happens, you could lose your home. And of course, you know, you lose your home, you become homeless through no fault of your own because you can't afford your rent, because your rent is too high or your income is too low. Well, apparently that drops you out of the public consciousness. People don't care. And eventually gets to the point where politicians, such as the guy in Florida, who doesn't give a shit about homeless people, will come and destroy your homeless cart. Oh, got a homeless problem? It's hammer time. That's how these people think. But there are causes to homelessness that aren't your fault. And that's what a lot of these people don't understand. On any given night, there are more than 600,000 homeless people in America because they can't afford the rent. They can't afford to get a place, and they can't get help from the government. Homeless students have reached a record last year of 1.1 million. 1.1 million students considered homeless. Look, and homelessness has more than just the obvious effects. Homelessness can prevent you from getting a job. In order to pick yourself up from that homelessness and to be able to afford a place to live. High rent and low wages, they're a major problem. Now, I remember a lot of people would make fun of Jimmy McMillan, saying, oh, the rent is too damn high. But you know what? After looking at some of these figures, I really think Jimmy was onto something. Hey, thanks for watching this video. Please leave a comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button and share with your friends. If you want to see more, go to our channel at youtube.com/TYTNation. And if you really want to support the show, support this channel, go to our fundraising campaign at www.patreon.com/TYTNation. The website is in the description below. Thank you guys, and keep watching.